Hello, today I wanted to do my reading wrap-up for February, which is my least favourite month. It's not nice and Christmassy anymore, but it's not nice and spring either. So I got some reading done because I didn't want to go outside. Because I'm running around and losing the sun in the flat as well, I'll just get going. The very first book I read was Waiting for Doggo, which I picked up in the bookshop simply because the title has dog in it. And I'm a bit dog obsessed, and it was a very cute little read. I did a video that I'll link in the description of the video talking about it a little more. I recommend it for anyone who loves dogs just as much as me and is looking for something light to read. The second book that I read I don't have in physical form anymore because I got it from the library, and it was The Yellow Birds by Kevin Powers, which I was very, very positively surprised by. I loved it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The book is about American soldiers in Iraq, especially one who returns back home and struggles with symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. And Kevin Powers himself, the author, did fight in Iraq. So I was very impressed by how he fused very poetic language with horrible topics. So much so, bear with me, I actually wrote down one thing because it's a library book. I had to write it down myself because I just thought it sounded so clever and so beautiful at the same time. He says, "Because how can you measure deviation if you don't know the mean? There was no centre in the world. The curves of all our bells were cracked." And I just thought that sentence was so beautiful and described so well how crazy some of the things are that go on in our world. I highly recommend it. Beautiful read, really beautiful. And then I went on to read a book that I've had on my to-be-read pile for exactly a year now. I thought that was funny. I added that on the 1st of March. Today's the 1st of March. And that was Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. I thought this would be the perfect read for me. I've heard so many good things about Kazuo Ishiguro as an author, and I hadn't read anything so far. So this being a dystopian novel set in a kind of boarding school, I thought that ticked all the boxes for me. I did like it, and I thought there were some great themes in it concerning the sort of innocence is bliss kind of ideas and innocent ignorance of children and how we adjust our attitudes towards something that we've grown up with, and whether that's sort of our duty as adults. I did think it was very interesting. I did, however, get a bit annoyed almost with the first person narrator, who is one of these children in the boarding school, and she talks about her friends and her relationships and everything so much through her lens. And because I thought she wasn't the most perceptive person, I was kind of eager to find out how other people would have seen the same things. But I guess that is also a feat of that book, making me feel so agitated with the narrator. So I'm a bit unsure about it. I did give it 4 out of 5 stars, I believe. And I am very curious to read more of Kazuo Ishiguro's books in the future, especially because they come very warmly recommended. Then I went on to read Mountains of the Moon, which I have a copy of. Silly story. I actually got this from the library, and it had a different cover, and this was one of these books that I'd bought ages and ages ago, not realising I owned it, saw it in the library and read the back and went, "Oh, that's interesting." Oh no, really? I thought it was interesting before and I bought it before. So, I read a library book that I actually own. That was a bit stupid. I did a sort of review of this book. I still have mixed feelings about it. It's about a girl named Louise, and her life, basically. It follows her as a child, as a young adult and as a 30-odd just being released from prison. And it's quite gritty. There's some very hard to read passages in it, but after thinking about it for some weeks now, I think there are better books on that topic. Just because there were some shocker moments in it, didn't convince me completely of the book. I gave it 3 out of 5 because I still think there were some very, very powerful passages in it, but at times I would have liked a bit more of a clear storyline. Then I picked up The Diving Bell and the Butterfly by, I gotta read the name because I don't want to get it wrong, Jean-Dominique Bauby. I got that from the library. It's a very short book written by the former editor, I believe, French editor of Elle. A successful man who suffers a kind of stroke, falls into a coma, and upon awakening from the coma finds that he's completely paralyzed. He can only move his eyelids. And by a sort of clever system of blinking and signaling the correct letters, he actually dictates this book, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, and that book is the result of it. I thought it was a sad read because reading these short chapters, you never forget that this is actually non-fiction. This is family father coming to terms with a drastic change of his life. He describes the hospital life around him, the people he sees. It's nicely written, which almost surprised me a little. I don't know why that would just surprise me, but I was just really impressed, I guess, by it being possible to dictate a complete book by that manner and then not sacrificing language just to get your point across quicker. It was very interesting. It's not a big book. It's quite short, so if you're at all interested, I do recommend picking it up. The next book I read was How to Raise the Perfect Dog by Cesar Millan and his co-author, I guess, Melissa Jo Peltier, which I've also talked about in another video. This is something for Cesar Millan fans. I fancy myself one, and I am getting amped up to get a dog, so that's why I read it, and my boyfriend is reading it now on the Kindle, so I'm hoping we will both profit from having read that a little. I'm sure there are other just as good books out there. This book by Cesar Millan follows 4 puppies that he wants to develop into the perfect dog. Basically, that's all it is. It's not a fascinating read by any means. I think I've just gotten so amped up about the thought of having a dog that I don't even care about linguistic merit anymore. And then the final book that I read that I finished on the 29th of February was Wonder by R.J. Palacio or Palacio, I am not sure. And this is one that I feel really bad about for not loving. I saw this go around YouTube and the internet quite a while ago, and everyone seems to love it. On Goodreads, everyone seems to love it, and I just thought it was okay. It's about a 10-year-old boy named August Pullman, and he is born with a facial abnormality. He describes himself as even more hideous than you as a reader could even imagine. And it's about him going to school for the first time in 5th grade because he's been homeschooled so far. And it's basically about that. It's a mixture of a coming-of-age story. It doesn't show the story just from his point of view, but also the people around him. And basically we see through his eyes how horrible people can be and how wonderful people can be. And I thought that was a powerful message, don't get me wrong. And there are some really nice characters in the book as well, but I found myself being more interested in the adults and parents in the book, and I guess the book is classed as a middle grade novel, and therefore the children very much get centre stage. I don't mind reading about kids, of course not, but I then sometimes found it a bit basic almost. So therefore I just didn't enjoy it that much. I thought it was a well-written book. I thought the story was meaningful, maybe just not my cup of tea necessarily. I think I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. So those were all the books I read in February. Let me know if you've read any of them and drastically disagree with my opinions. Maybe you feel like picking 1 or 2 of them up. I hope you have a great day. Tschüss.